This was originally released on our Those Guys Play channel. Links in the description box down below. Hey guys, it's Matt here, and I'm here along with John. So, John, you can say words, John. It's okay.
Words, John.
Yeah, there you go. So, it has been a while since I've been able to get John on the channel. Usually we do Let's Play videos, specifically John and I, but I realized, and this was through intense interrogation, that John has actually a lot of rare Dreamcast games. Now, when I say rare, I'm not talking about all of these are generally rare or generally expensive, just out of the games that are in his collection, especially me, someone who does not have many Dreamcast games. I looked at him and I was like, oh, John, you have some heavy hitters. So I thought we would take a look at some of these and also talk about how you got some of them. And normally we don't like to talk about prices because prices do fluctuate, but obviously in a video where prices are going to come up, we should probably...
It's not gaudy to talk about price in a price video.
No, in general, I just don't like talking about them because they fluctuate so much. We were just talking about that ourselves. Like, it's weird how some of these prices will just go up and down depending on the day, month, year, etc., etc. So by the time you're watching this, years from now, there might be a chance that some of these games are either more or less expensive due to one reason or another.
And that's now, but back in the day, most of these were $20
yeah.
in shoe store money.
And, wait, so you actually worked at a shoe store to try to afford some of these games, but before you continue, you also got some of them at huge discounts because they were in like the discount bin.
Yes, yeah. Because in true John fashion, I got into the Dreamcast relatively late into its life. Mm-hmm. It was released in, actually it's going to be 20 years this September, but yeah. I got into it in 2000, the summer of 2001 was when I got it.
Right.
I was working my first job, which was at a shoe store.
Defunct, I assume?
Yes, very much so. It was I don't even know if we can say, well, we could probably say that it was Marty's Shoes.
I mean, they're not
which I don't even, like I said, there are children born that will never have known it ever existed. But and so it was later in the system's life.
Right.
Most of these were down to $20 or even $10 because they were clearancing out at that point.
So the first one we're taking a look at is considered the cheapest out of all the games in John's collection, but that's only due to an odd technicality. So we're talking about Plasma Sword. So John, this had a different name in Japanese?
Well, the series is Star Gladiator, and this was the second. This was the second game in the series. This was Star Gladiator 2 in Japan.
Okay, and what is the game about?
It's another Capcom fighting game. It's 3D, and it's fighting game, but it has a bit of almost a lot of heavy Star Wars influences.
Okay.
The titular Plasma Sword is basically a lightsaber.
All right, I want to take a look at the back of this
and the villain.
Because by the time you guys are seeing this, I've already played it and there's all this cool footage.
Right.
So, exactly. But at this time, I have no idea what this is. So so you're seeing on the screen right now, it says $20 to $71. So this is an odd situation where I have a feeling that some of these games, it really depends on the day, who's buying them, and honestly, if there's like these bidding wars that are happening, again, depending on when an item is sold, I've seen some of them for as cheap as $20 US, right? And not even like just only disc only, like full complete $20, and then other ones going up to $71.
And incidentally, I think I spent $10 on that one because I think they might have been having a buy one get one half off.
Do you remember where you may have gotten it from?
They're
not around anymore.
That was Electronics Boutique.
Oh, okay.
So I think they were absorbed by another far more widespread company.
And again, back to that price for a second. It's just so interesting how these things fluctuate. Now, something interesting because of the fighting game. No crazy dialogue that you need to follow, right? Like,
not really.
So then you can probably, if I remember correctly, getting a Japanese version of this, well, you still need a Japanese Dreamcast or a way to boot Japanese games, significantly cheaper. And that's always a good thing as well, because I'm pretty sure this game is actually less than $20 if you get the Japanese version of it. And that's the coolest thing with a lot of these games, especially fighting games. You don't really have to follow a lot of the story, plot, things like that.
There were a couple games fighting games that I imported specifically because you don't need to really. As it happens, I happen to know a little bit of Japanese, but definitely not enough to muddle through. Menu. You can figure out the menus, but
but no RPGs. No JRPGs.
Unless it's something like Final Fantasy that I played a billion times over.
Yeah.
Play with my eyes shut anyway. But
and the second one we're taking a look at, we've actually played this game on the channel before, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. So this is one that is near and dear to your heart.
This was the system seller for me. I basically got the Dreamcast so I could play. If I got no other game but MVC2, I would have been happy.
And that one was $70 to $90. Yeah, look at his eyes. So $79. But it's funny though because these mean so much to you that like you were telling me off camera, unless like something major happens, you're probably gonna keep these.
Yeah, if a loved one needs a kidney or something,
obviously, yeah, no, but a lot of these are in this price range where like it'll get you some money, but it's also not going to pay off a house.
Right.
So
it was
anyway,
a huge payout.
But you paid. Sorry to interrupt. You paid $20 for that. Was that what it was?
For Marvel's Capcom 2.
Or would you buy it new?
I bought it new, and I bought it for. Actually, no. I can't remember if I bought it new. I think I bought it used. Okay. But even used, even relatively late in the system's life, I want to say that I spent like either $35 or $40 for it.
Okay, and that's something too people have to remember. Like, unless you're really cashing out and getting this at like $100 or $150, these were still brand new games at the time. So because there's some people who will talk about retro games. They're like, darn, the retro game is $60. Well, that's how much it cost at the time.
Yeah, a brand new game.
Fair,
a brand new game back then was it was in that era was about $60.
Sometimes even $80, depending on if it was a longer game, RPG, double disc, things like that. So or
or it came with a fancy accessory, expansion pack, rumble pack, all that stuff.
Yeah, and I only bring this up because again, sometimes people think of it and they're like, wow, $70 to $90, and it's like, well, really, if you bought it new at the time, it's only $10 more, right? The cheapest,
right.
But to be fair, 20 years later, $70 to $90 is a lot. But again, another one where you can get the Japanese version and it would be much cheaper. So definitely look into that as well. So the next one we're taking a look at is Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. So what does this game mean to you? Because for me, and I'm not trying to be rude here to Street Fighter fans, I'm just being honest, with my lack of knowledge with Street Fighter, every one just sounds not the same to me, but just has a big name, and I'm like, oh, I don't know the difference. So like, why did you get this one, let's say, over another one? Although you have a lot of Street Fighter games.
I do. Okay. I already said RPGs and fighting games are my two favorites. And Street Fighter 3, like I said, kind of was a quiet entry in the series. There was Street Fighter 2. There was the many incarnations of Street Fighter 2. Then there was a Street Fighter Alpha series, which is a favorite of mine. And then Street Fighter 3 kind of snuck in under the radar. And then so what we were specifically talking about was the third version of Street Fighter 3, because like Street Fighter 2, there were several iterations with characters added.
For any new fans watching, like new fans as in newer fans of video games, you could argue they're like DLC updates but full games.
Right, back in the day where when they wanted to add characters and moves and stages.
And we're not saying that a game wouldn't have a full roster, but again, when they wanted to add more, they wouldn't say, oh, it's Street Fighter 4. They might say Street Fighter 3 and then give it a tagline.
And then a subtitle or a tagline,
okay.
Right? And they did that with two. Then that started with 2. There was 2, there was World Warrior, Champion Edition, Champion Edition, Turbo, Super Turbo, and that's just say nothing of the many HD remixes of it and things like that.
This is the Street Fighter 2 collection. Wait, you mean collection of all the games, like a second? No, only Street Fighter 2s.
It became its own series.
And
honestly, broad strokes purposes, they were incremental. Third Strike, though, was not just an update to. The first 2 were kind of updates of each other, where characters were added and things like that. But Third Strike was essentially a new game with a new.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
With new gameplay added. It wasn't just an incremental update. It was basically a sequel.
And as you guys have seen down below, that one is $60 to $70. But again, as always, will probably be much cheaper if you get the Japanese version. And the second to last one we're taking a look at is Project Justice. So, name alone, I'm sold. I hear Project Justice and I'm just like, America? But no, this came out in Japan first. Still Project Justice in Japan?
There is a it has a rather long title.
Okay, so you'll see that at the bottom. Now, I'm noticing a very Capcom heavy. Well, very Capcom heavy. So you into Capcom?
A little bit. Is that a game company of some kind?
Yeah, right.
No, my Dreamcast was almost. I was treating my Dreamcast almost like a fighting game machine. Because Capcom fighting game machine. Because the Dreamcast was the first system that I had that could handle arcade perfect ports. Mm-hmm. So no load times, no cut frames.
Yeah, because you had a Super Nintendo as a kid, and then you didn't move on to PS1. You moved on to Dreamcast, or was PS1 in the middle?
I had PS1 was in there.
Oh, in the middle. Okay.
And I did have PS1 versions of some of not these specific games, but of Capcom fighters, and they were serviceable. But because of the PS1 didn't have the processing power, a lot of times they didn't play quite like the arcade. Like there was.
But for you, these did.
These did. These were spot on.
And so Project Justice, $75 to $125. Now I haven't asked you this about these games so far, but just with that one, because we're getting a lot higher ticket price here, why do you think Project Justice may have garnering this price now? You think it's because it's just that good, or maybe even mixed in with it didn't sell a lot of copies?
Well, I mean, it was an excellent game. You know, it's high school kids beating the crap out of each other, so what's not to like? But
right.
I think I would just be guessing, but I think because it is a more niche title, it's not one of the more well-known Capcom fighters,
right?
And it might have been a limited print.
And it says right here, you guys have seen it already. That's how much? 15?
So yeah, it was used at $15.
That's nuts. So you got it $15. And now it's worth at most $125 complete US. So that's crazy to think about. So, I mean, if, I would say, we're not necessarily giving tips here, but if we were going to give at least one tip, go for some of the stuff that, first of all, that you like, obviously, because John loved all these games and still does, but go for stuff in the bargain bin.
Sure.
Because you never know what one day's bargain bin is going to be.
Oh, I've always been, from the time I was a little kid, I've always been the king of the bargain bin. I would go straight there because you can get things that are, and they're good. There's a lot of reasons why something ends up in the bargain bin. In this case, like I said, it was because the Dreamcast was basically on its way out.
Yeah, but still, most of these that we've talked about so far, other than Marvel v. Capcom 2, you got in the bargain bin, $15 to $20.
Yep.
And it's just crazy how the prices have increased on some of these. But again, thankfully with Project Justice, anyone who wants to play this, obviously Japanese version going to be significantly cheaper, thankfully. I mean, you still do have, I'll admit, for some of these titles, you will still have some people, because the US version is getting a bit expensive, they'll try to dip into the Japanese side. So I'm not saying that there's no competition when trying to play these games or collect these games, but still, it's going to be a bit easier than jumping into an RPG. I think that's really cool that, we're focusing more on fighting games, because there's always that option.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the last game that we're taking a look at is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So here's why I'm happy. So look, have I ever played this game? No. But I've recently gotten into JoJo over the last few years. I've actually talked about it on our Those Guys on the Radio channel, not with John, because I didn't know that John was into JoJo. So
John didn't know either until John played the fighting game, honestly. I did not know what this was.
So this is currently going for $100, maybe a little bit more. You will have, because I did research before we looked at the video, but I didn't do it as close as I would have liked to with some of these games, so I want to make sure that it is at 100 and not a little lower, a little higher. But last I checked, it was at $100. So by the time this is out, you guys will see it. And it's interesting because not only is it very close to the arcade port, but this was at a time when the anime, first of all, there were anime OVA adaptations of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 3. If you guys don't know, it's based off of an anime that, the manga, at the time it only had 3 parts. So they created this game to tie into that manga, and they created the OVAs.
The game is based on Volume 3. I think they were past that, I think, because this was this was released in 2000, I think.
Well, they were a little past it, but they were still trying to recoup, trying to get that hype around it.
But in a lot of ways, I feel like this is, like I said, the Dreamcast version, there was also a PlayStation port of the arcade game. That really brought Americans' attention to the JoJo series, because I didn't even know what it was until I played the fighting game.
But this is the thing that's the coolest thing about it, to me anyway, is that, the OVA existed, there was no manga in the US at the time of it. So there's no manga, there's no long-running anime. That actually started in 2012, even in Japan. So all they had was manga, and we eventually got Part 3 in the early to mid-2000s. But even then, it wasn't the best translation, or wasn't the most faithful. And remember, John, it jumped in at Part 3, not 1 or 2. So you still felt a sense of loss if you didn't know about JoJo.
And even when I first played the game, I felt like I was supposed to know who these characters were. They were talking about like Joseph, and it wasn't like I still got the lay of what was going on, but I already felt like there was history between, especially Joseph and Dio. I'm like, well, this sounds like I'm coming in on like the middle of a series.
Yeah, no, and that's what's so crazy about it. That's why it interested me, the fact that this even exists in the US. And obviously, as we mentioned earlier, it has a heavy ticket price because I'm assuming it just did not sell as well. And also now we have newer JoJo fans coming in and going, oh, I must get JoJo. But obviously that increases the prices as well. Again, especially compared to how good of an arcade port it was. But now here's the kicker though. John, how much did you get this for?
This, like I said, this was I think a $20 deal here.
$20. This man got it for $20.
I was half the man. I was half the man I am now, though. Then,
well,
back
I mean,
then.
literally 20 years ago.
Yes.
So yeah, I want to say your luck, John. And also, it was a good game too. That's the thing too. It's not even like it's a bad game.
It was a sleeper. I said it was a sleeper hit. You know, it was.
Yeah.
You didn't hear much about it, but everybody that had played it hadn't had nothing but good things to say about it.
So it is just crazy to think about this list. Again, these are the top 5 rare, or you could argue expensive games in John's collection. Hard to talk about rarity sometimes because of the fact that like it's rare until all of a sudden someone finds a case of 24 factory sealed. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's hard to talk about rare, but at least we know that they're the most expensive in your collection now.
In the tote in my closet.
Yes, in the tote in your closet. No, but it's really cool. Happy to have you on. Happy to take a look at these games. And we've had some fun with some of them before. Hopefully we have some more fun with other ones on the channel in the future. So thank you so much, John.
There's still plenty more totes to open. So
There's plenty more totes to open. We might actually take a look at some in the future. So love you all. Take care and tune in next time. Doing a different type of video this time, but maybe we'll make some more in the future. So take care. See you next time.